My husband is about to come home from a business trip and asked me to take a bath and wait for him. I was bored and taking selfies. Suddenly, I saw a photo of me sleeping soundly in my phone album. Under the dim light, the gray stripes of the quilt could be seen. It was on my own bed. Looking at the shooting date, it was 1 o'clock in the morning today. However, my husband is on a business trip. I was alone at home last night. So who took this photo? My hair stood on end all of a sudden. I am very clear that this photo means that when I was sleeping last night, there was still someone else in the bedroom. Using my phone, he took a photo of me sleeping soundly. My eyes scanned the bedroom vigilantly. The bedroom is very small and everything is clear at a glance. My gaze fell on the dark living room outside the bedroom door. A thick night made all the items in the room only have dark outlines. There were shiny spots on the balcony door, as if they were hidden eyes in the night. I was horrified. When I got up and looked carefully, it was just the reflection of the glass. Before I could catch my breath, I heard a rustling sound outside, as if a key was gently turning the door lock. Is my husband back? Honey? I called softly, and the sound stopped immediately. At this time, I remembered that it could never be my husband. When I talked to him on the phone just now, he said that he had just passed the toll station. Even if there is no traffic jam on the way home, it will take at least an hour. But now, less than half an hour has passed. He can't be so fast. I was so scared that my heart was pounding. It was very clear in the quiet night. I tiptoed to the door of the living room and looked out through the peephole. Under the dim light in the corridor, there was no one. Did I hear wrong? I immediately locked the door. At this time, I saw a black shadow swaying in the light coming from the corridor through the crack of the door. It was very clear that there was someone at my door. I looked out through the peephole again, but the peephole was pitch black. Did the person outside block the peephole? What does he want? I was anxious and sent a WeChat message to my husband and asked in text where he was. Almost there. There are still 20 minutes. He replied, so impatient. Wife. Have you taken a bath? I was about to tell him the strange situation now. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door outside. The sound was like a thunderbolt splitting directly on my head. I trembled involuntarily. I didn't say a word, hoping that my husband would come back soon. Oh, Clint, are you at home? A loud female voice came from outside the door. It was my neighbor Rila. I looked out through the peephole again, but it was still pitch black. Oh, Clint, I know you're not asleep. Open the door. The knocking continued. What's the matter? I answered timidly in the room. Because I couldn't see outside. I still didn't dare to open the door easily. Can you lend me your electric grill for barbecue? I want to make a midnight snack. Are you alone outside? Of course. Why can't I see you? What's this pasted on your door? The flyer is blocking it. Who pasted it here? So immoral. The peephole on the door revealed a light spot. I looked out again and sure enough, I saw Ela standing outside alone, looking at a piece of paper in her hand. I carefully opened the door. Did you see anyone outside my door just now? No. I went into the room and took out the electric grill for her. When she saw me wearing a lace nightgown, she smiled meaningfully. Waiting for your Eli? I'm leaving. Don't disturb you. She casually gave me the piece of paper in her hand and turned around and went back to her room. I saw that the piece of paper said healthy and delicious food delivered to your home. Order takeout. Available at any time. I was suddenly terrified. I know who it is. It must be him. It's the delivery man I gave a bad review to. The last time I met him, I ordered takeout from this flyer. About a week ago, I ordered a takeout at home. While I was eating rice, I suddenly found a hard object under the rice. I flipped it out with chopsticks and saw that it was a bunch of keys. The keys to an electric bike. The iron ring was rusty. The plastic edge was worn and rough. And there was black oil residue in the groove of the iron sheet. I almost vomited in disgust. I was furious and called the merchant and reprimanded them. The merchant said it was absolutely impossible. Just then, there was a movement outside the door. I opened the door and saw the delivery man squatting on the ground in front of my door looking for something. He was a young-looking guy, about 175 centimeters tall and on the thin side. "Sister, I lost my electric bike key. Have you seen it?" In an instant, I seemed to understand what was going on. It seemed that the merchant was indeed innocent. The problem was with this delivery man. "It's in the rice." I coldly held the box of rice and picked up the bunch of keys stained with rice grains with chopsticks and threw them in front of him. "Ah?" He was very surprised. "How could it be? How could it be? What do you say? Did you spill the rice and then scoop the rice back into the lunchbox with your hands? By accident. You put the keys in your hand into the lunchbox together?" "No. No." "Then explain how it happened. How could the keys in your hand end up at the bottom of the rice? If you can give a reasonable explanation, I will believe you." I don't know." Although he was stubborn, his eyes clearly showed a guilty flicker. "I will definitely give you a bad review for this order." "Sister. Don't." "Sister." He wanted to plead for something. I unceremoniously closed the door. After that, there was continuous knocking on the door outside. But I didn't open the door again. Thinking of the rice I had just eaten and the actions of this delivery man, my heart was filled with disgust and anger. It was like being fed shit. After that, he called again. His tone was like he was about to cry and pleaded, "Sister, I'm really sorry. I don't know how the keys got into the rice either. But the rice really wasn't spilled. Please don't give a bad review. My mother is hospitalized. My younger brother is still in school. The whole family depends on me. If you give a bad review, our family will have no way to live. If the rice was spilled and you told me honestly, I can understand you. But no one can accept your behavior of scooping the rice back with your hands, and then giving it to me to eat." I hung up his phone. But I was still a little hesitant about whether to give a bad review. If what he said was true, it was really pitiful. Was it not necessary for me to be so serious? Of course. Give a bad review. He's just playing the victim. Does it mean that we should forgive his mistakes unconditionally just because he's pitiful? When my husband heard about this, he was very angry. This kind of person has no morality at all. If he continues to work in the takeout industry, who would dare to order takeout in the future? He deserves to lose this job. After listening to my husband's words, I thought it was right. My sense of justice was aroused. I gave a bad review and posted the photo of the rice mixed with keys on the internet. Not long after, I received his call again. He sounded very tired and cold. "Withdraw the bad review for me. I have a criminal record. If I lose this job, I will never find a job again. You are too ruthless. You leave me no way out. I will also make you have no way to live." When I heard that he had a criminal record, I was scared at that time. I thought, better to have one less trouble. Who's afraid of you? Is it my wife's fault that you have a criminal record? Make me have no way to live? Unexpectedly, at this time, my husband had already heard it and was furious. He grabbed the phone. "You're so arrogant. If you still want to go back to prison, come and try." Before my husband finished speaking, the other party hung up the phone. "Husband, won't he really retaliate against us?" I was a little worried. "No, I've seen many people like this. They just talk big. In reality, they are cowards. If he dares to say those words in front of me, I respect him as a man." My husband is a fitness coach. He is tall and strong. He feels like he can beat 10 of those thin delivery men. Although he didn't care at all. I am always timid and still very uneasy in my heart. My husband immediately called the police and said that I had been threatened by a delivery man with a criminal record. The police got the investigation results. This delivery man is named Caleb. He is indeed a person with a criminal record. He was once imprisoned for theft and assault. At present, he has been fired by the takeout company because of my complaint. The police said that if Caleb calls to threaten again next time, record it and call the police. In fact, my husband didn't think that the delivery man would dare to really come and cause trouble. Calling the police was just to make me feel at ease. He also specially prepared a metal baseball bat and put it at the door just in case. Later, Caleb called again to threaten me to withdraw the bad review. As my husband said, I recorded it and firmly refused. Although he threatened, after hearing that I was recording and would call the police, his attitude softened again. After that, he never called to harass me again. As my husband expected, Caleb never appeared again. I gradually relaxed and believed that my husband's judgment was correct. Caleb was just talking big and wouldn't really come to retaliate because of a bad review. However, we underestimated him. I am very sure that the person who just turned the door lock of my house with a key is Caleb. I suddenly remembered something and immediately checked the doormat at the door. I found that the spare key under the doormat was gone. There are 3 keys in my house. I have one. My husband has one. And there is a spare key hidden under the doormat at the door in case of emergency. But the chance that my husband and I forget to bring the key and use it is almost zero. It must be that day, when he was squatting in front of my door looking for the electric bike key. He found the spare key under my doormat. Taking advantage of my husband's business trip, he came to my home to retaliate against me. It was also him who entered the room when I was sleeping soundly last night. I felt a gust of cold wind blowing in the corridor and pouring into my back from behind my neck. I immediately closed the door and pressed the lock button again. Husband, when will you come back? Our spare key is gone. I'm scared. I dialed Eli's phone and hid in the bedroom, almost crying. My husband knew that I was always timid and told me not to scare myself. He would be home in a few minutes. I felt my hands were shaking and was completely relying on him to come back quickly. However, at this moment, I heard a sound, like the creaking sound of a loose wooden floor, coming from behind the curtain. The air seemed to freeze. Wait obediently. I'm parking in the underground garage. Wait for me. Don't be afraid. My husband urged on the phone, but I couldn't say a word. My eyes glanced at the curtain in the bedroom. The wind blew the curtain, and it fluttered slightly. Underneath, a pair of black sneakers appeared and disappeared from time to time. There is someone behind the curtain. I was stunned for a second, and quickly got up and ran towards the door of the living room. In an instant, that black shadow was like a black arrow. It shot out from behind the curtain and flew towards me. I was dragged by a huge force. A cold palm covered my mouth and nose. I tried to shout, but I couldn't make a sound. I reached out to the door lock with difficulty. Before I could open the door, my hand was pried open by him. He also pressed the lock button. Although he is thin, there is still an absolute disparity in strength between him and me. I have no chance to escape at all and am almost in despair. The black shadow behind me is like a giant python, wrapping me tighter and tighter. In the struggle, I bit his hand. He let go of me in pain but quickly pressed me on the sofa again and covered my mouth. Don't open the door. By the light of the bedroom, I saw his bloodshot eyes under the peaked cap. It was that delivery man Caleb. Outside, there was the sound of hurried footsteps on the stairs, and the key was inserted into the hole and shook violently. Because the door was locked from the inside, Eli couldn't open it with the key. Wife. I'm back. Wife. Open the door. It's me. Eli shouted outside the door. But I was firmly held down by the black shadow, and completely lost the room to struggle. The mobile phone that I dropped on the ground vibrated. At the same time, I heard Delia's voice outside. What's wrong? Oaklyn was still at home just now. She borrowed electricity from me a few minutes ago. The knocking outside turned into pounding, and Eli's voice became more and more anxious. Open the door quickly. I'm going to call the police. At this moment, the delivery man leaned beside my ear and there was a deep and rapid breath. Don't make a sound. I'm saving your life. The delivery man covered my mouth. Listen to me calmly. Or you will die. Although I didn't believe him at all, I still reduced my struggle. I felt that the delivery man's tone was extremely restrained. There was no trace of madness in his eyes. Only uneasiness. I think as long as the conversation can continue, everything will have a turn for the better. When he saw that I was calmer, he pressed me down with one hand and showed me his mobile phone with the other. I saw that there were dozens of call records between my mobile phone number and his. But I only called him twice. I had no idea about the rest of the calls at all. These dense call records were like a dense forest with no way out, making me dizzy. I know the person who talked to me on the phone is not you. Every word of his seemed to be squeezed out from the depths of his throat after being heavily suppressed. I could feel that he was very nervous. Because of his nervousness, I relaxed a little instead. Who is it? Is it my husband? I can't think of anyone else except my husband. Only he knows the password of my mobile phone. However, I just saw that there were calls made yesterday and this morning in the call records. During this period, my husband was on a business trip outside, and the mobile phone was always by my side. I remembered that strange photo in my mobile phone. It seemed that there was a ghost-like shadow in my home that could use my mobile phone at any time. It's a woman, Caleb said. My heart trembled. Although I didn't completely believe his words, my whole body stood on end, and an unnamed fear spread to every nerve ending. I am a graphic designer and a freelancer. I work at home day after day. My social circle is extremely limited. Except for my husband. I seldom contact others. Although I need to be highly focused when working and often throw my mobile phone everywhere. It is impossible for such a woman to use my mobile phone quietly without me knowing anything about it. I was half believing and completely at a loss about his words. She asked me to come. What? At this moment, I forgot the danger of this stranger in front of me. My mind tried to spin rapidly. But it was still a mess and became more and more chaotic. I was completely confused by his words. I have a huge secret to tell you. He had an irresistible urgency. It seemed that every word was crowded on the tip of his tongue, competing for a chance of survival to escape. However, before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by a violent crashing sound. Along with my husband's anxious call and the deep voice of the uncle upstairs, "This has to be recorded to the police." After that, the murmuring conversation outside couldn't be heard clearly. I have to go. I'll tell you later. Caleb let go of me and hurriedly ran towards the window. He was trembling all the time and seemed even more frightened than me. Suddenly, he turned around in panic and said to me, "There is something wrong with your husband." I sat there stunned, watching him nimbly climb over the window and disappear from my sight. My mind was completely blanked and I completely lost the ability to think. Reason told me that I should rush to the door immediately, open it, and let my husband and neighbors catch the sudden intruder. However, there was another voice whispering in my heart, stopping me and making me freeze in place. "There is something wrong with your husband." This sentence he left behind was like a seed, taking root and sprouting in my mind and echoing constantly. The flashing red and blue lights of the police car downstairs penetrated the night and shone on the living room window of my house. Eli held me tightly. My body was like losing all temperature and was as cold as a piece of ice. Neighbors gathered in my house. Their eyes were full of concern. But I felt an indescribable oppression. "Did you see that person's face clearly?" the policeman asked. My lips trembled slightly, but I couldn't say a word. Eli took over the conversation, his tone very excited. "It's Caleb. Just now the neighbor said that he saw him loitering at my door at night. Comrade policeman, you'd better check the community surveillance." "Caleb? We have called the police before. He is a delivery man. He pestered us because of a bad review. He has a criminal record and always harasses our Oaklyn. Oaklyn. Tell the comrades in the police. Don't be afraid." I nodded, my voice weak. "It's him." At this moment, my gaze fell on the metal baseball bat standing quietly at the door. A detail suddenly flashed through my mind. During the struggle with Caleb, I tried to resist but couldn't find that baseball bat. However, when I opened the door, I found that the baseball bat was in my husband's hand. I clearly remember that since he went on a business trip, I still caught a glimpse of that baseball bat behind the door. How could it appear in his hand for no reason? There is something wrong with your husband. That sentence left by Caleb lingered in my heart like a ghost and couldn't be dispelled. How did he get in? The policeman asked. Maybe I forgot to close the door after opening it. I deliberately downplayed it a bit, and didn't want the police to catch him. I even thought that after this incident was over, I would contact him immediately to find out what secret was hidden in his words. I have a huge secret to tell you. What secret was it? Did he hurt you? The policeman asked with concern. No, he just asked me to withdraw the bad review. Later, when he heard my husband's voice, he was afraid and ran away through the window. I was also afraid that my husband would come in and start a fight and make things worse. So I let him leave. Is there any property lost at home? I shook my head. No. The policeman said that they would definitely investigate this matter thoroughly and give Caleb a stern warning. But I could feel that their expressions relaxed. It seemed that they had already classified this matter as a small dispute caused by a bad review. After the policeman left, the tension and panic that Eli had just now seemed to have drained all his strength. All that was left was the fatigue after returning from a business trip. After participating in activities for 2 days, his voice was hoarse. But he still tried to comfort me. Husband, how did the baseball bat get into your hand when you came in? I asked. Eli was obviously taken aback. He probably thought that I was so frightened that I wouldn't notice such a small detail. When I came back, I found the baseball bat lying at the door. It was very strange. Eli frowned and thought, could it be Caleb? I nodded. It's possible. After all, if a stranger sneaks into the house, I can't predict what he will do. That night, I couldn't sleep all night. Eli was already asleep, breathing heavily with a slight snore. His hand around me was still patting me gently to comfort me. I couldn't help asking myself in my heart, why in those few short seconds would I be influenced by a stranger with a criminal record who broke into my home and even begin to doubt my beloved husband? What would have happened if my husband hadn't come back in time tonight is really unpredictable, making me involuntarily shrink closer to my husband's warm embrace. My husband is a fitness trainer. We met and fell in love in the gym. He is tall and handsome and always gives me a full sense of security. After getting married, his work was not going well. He invested in a gym but it closed down and suffered losses due to the epidemic. Later, he became a fitness anchor on the internet and signed a contract with a company. He has been working very hard. He said that he couldn't let me support him all the time. Only when he supports me can he be a man. The competition in the anchor industry is very fierce. He often goes on business trips and participates in activities arranged by the company to increase exposure. He is obedient and considerate to me. He often shows affection in the live broadcast room, tells our story, and tells about my support for him. The cover of his live broadcast room is always a photo of him lifting me up high, saying that a man should be able to lift the weight of love. Thinking of these, I feel very guilty. The next day, I wanted to speak many times and tell him everything Caleb said, but I always felt an invisible force stopping me. In the end, I still chose to be silent and temporarily bury these doubts in my heart. I decided to go to the telecommunications company first to check my call records. Eli went to work at the MCN company. I secretly went to the telecommunications company to check my call records. The results showed that there were a lot of call records between me and Caleb. Each call time was not long, which was the same as what Caleb showed me. This made me very confused. I dialed Caleb's phone, but it was always turned off. I was very uneasy and really wanted to contact him to ask for an explanation. Time passed by in my uneasiness for 3 days. During the time when my husband was at work, I suddenly received a message from an unfamiliar number. It was an address with a sentence, "If you want to know the truth, come here." Instinctively, I thought this was a message sent to me by Caleb. The address was a small beef noodle restaurant located in a village in the city. I hesitated. Should I really go there alone to meet a person who had threatened me and had a criminal record? What if this is just his means of revenge? But when I thought of those deleted call records on my mobile phone, and thought of his anxiety that night and his eagerness to show sincerity, curiosity overcame my fear. I simply tittied up and hurried out. The streets in the village and the city are narrow and winding, like a spider web, tightly wrapping all kinds of small shops and stalls in it. According to the address, I found that small restaurant. Although it was a bit simple, it had a kind of simple vitality in the steaming beef fragrance. The restaurant owner is a middle-aged woman. Her warm greeting and smiling face made me feel that there was no danger here. I chose a table in the corner and sat down. I sent a message to that unfamiliar number. And then it was a long wait. I was very uneasy. Just when I thought Caleb wouldn't show up, he finally appeared. He was wearing a peaked cap and his eyes were wandering around, looking extremely vigilant. "You are here. Great," he said in a low voice. He explained why he was late. He said he was afraid that I would bring the police. So he had first and secretly observed for a while. Recently, he also dare not turn on his phone for fear that the police will look for him because of that night's incident. He doesn't live near here either. He deliberately chose a place farther away. If he finds that I bring the police, he will disappear directly and leave. I don't want to go in again. If I go in again, I'm finished, he said. I calmly told him that I didn't reveal to the police that it was he who broke into my home. I simply said that I forgot to close the door. It was just a small quarrel. The police probably won't look into this matter deeply. Hearing these words, he smiled. "You are a smart woman. It's not in vain that I saved you." Saved me? He mentioned this word again, and I was even more confused. He nodded and said that he originally wanted to leave. But because of me, he still took the risk and stayed. "Your husband wants to kill you. I want to save you." While I was shocked by his statement, my heart was full of rejection, and even a little anger. "Oh, he? Then don't I have to thank you for saving my life?" I deliberately showed a contemptuous smile, and my tone was full of irony. "I'll tell you my story. After listening, believe it or not. It's your choice. Anyway, since I've said it, I'm worthy of you." Next is the story told by delivery man Caleb. I lied to you before. What, my mother is sick and hospitalized. My younger brother is still in school. And the whole family depends on me. These are all lies. I haven't been in touch with my family for a long time. I didn't like studying since I was a child. I learned a little petty theft from the gangsters in society. Once when I was stealing, I was discovered and I injured someone. Later, I went to prison. My mother died of illness when I was very young. My father has his own new family. He has long been extremely disappointed in me and may not even want to mention me at all. After I was released from prison, I stood on the street, but seemed to have a sense of restraint like being a guest in a stranger's house. I felt that I didn't belong to this world. I envy every passerby on the street. They all have places to go and places to return. My grandma lived with my uncle after she got sick. Before she died, I went to see her and swore to her that I would never break the law and commit crimes again in my life. I will find a job properly and live an ordinary life like everyone on the street. Only after Grandma heard these words did she pass away. But I didn't expect that it would be so difficult for people with a criminal record to find a job. For ordinary jobs, if they find out that you have a criminal record, in most cases, you will be directly eliminated. I didn't study hard before, and can only do physical labor. But industries like food delivery, express delivery, errand running, and security, all explicitly or implicitly prohibit the employment of people with criminal records. For a period of time, I could only sleep in the corridors of office buildings every day. I was often driven away, and had no money to eat. I felt that my life seemed to be over. Later, I hid the fact that I had been in prison. If I was lucky enough to meet an employer who didn't strictly check resumes, I could find a job. But it didn't last long. I was even more than when I was a thief. This food delivery job is the one I've held the longest. The income is good. And the team leader has evaluated me as an excellent employee several times. Of course, I also hid the fact of my criminal record. So I cherish it and work hard. So when you gave me a bad review, do you know how scared I was? I was even willing to kneel down and beg you. I can do anything as long as you are willing to revoke the bad review. And as for what you said that I spilled the rice and put it back, that definitely didn't happen. I swear. But I saw with my own eyes that you pulled my electric bike key out of the rice. I was completely confused. This kind of thing can't happen. Do you know? Absolutely impossible. I have always been very careful. A bad review from a customer is fatal to me. Although I don't understand why. I still begged you. I begged you not to give a bad review. Because for others, if this job is lost, it's lost. But if I lose this job, I have no way to live. But no matter how much I begged, I didn't persuade you, especially your husband, whose attitude was very tough. That afternoon, the delivery team leader told me that someone complained about me and said that I was a person with a criminal record. But the team leader and I have a good relationship. He said that as long as I get the customer to revoke the bad review, he will help me hide this matter. So I quickly called you again. I even bought 5 cat ties of apples and a box of milk, preparing to go to your door to apologize. Explain well. And apologize well. But you said on the phone that you don't care for my dirty garbage. If I dare to appear at your door, you will call the police. And you will definitely complain about me being a person with a criminal record to the headquarters and ask the headquarters to compensate. I don't know how you found out that I have a criminal record. I think you may have investigated me. I was so angry at that time that I was almost fainting. Caleb seemed to return to the scene at that time. His tone was gnashing his teeth. But I couldn't help interrupting him. I didn't say those words. He looked at me. I know. But I guessed it later. At that time, these words really made me angry. I hated you so much. I felt that a woman like you lives in a big house every day. Your husband goes to work to support you. You stay at home every day. You can order whatever you want to eat and wait for someone to deliver it to you. Revoking a bad review is just a matter of moving your finger. But you have to make things difficult for a person like me who has to try my best to survive. Caleb's voice became heavy. He clenched his fist. And his knuckles turned white due to excessive force. I listened very carefully and sympathized with him for the first time. Caleb said that later. In an extremely angry state. He called me again. Thinking that anyway, this job might be ruined by me. He threatened me with a mentality. I remember this call that Caleb mentioned. At that time, his voice was hoarse and sounded very cold. I have a criminal record. You are too extreme. You leave me no way to live. I will also make you unable to live. Caleb said, after this call. I knew that our relationship had actually deteriorated to an irreversible point. I definitely can't keep this job. I planned to take a chance and look for other jobs. But I never expected that I would start receiving your calls frequently. What did those calls say? My heart beat slightly faster. Those mysterious calls are the key to my coming here today. Every word can make me want to kill you. His words were like a cold current invading, making my body tremble. You said that I am garbage. A rat feces. A social parasite. People like me should not come out. It's better to be locked up for a lifetime. In the future, no matter what job I find, you will expose me and report me and leave me with no way out. You on the phone are completely a crazy woman. You scolded me almost every day. I couldn't bear it anymore and decided to retaliate against you. Hearing this, my palms sweated and I felt an unprecedented panic. I bought a stainless steel camping knife. It's small, portable, and very sharp. Just thinking about the way you are frightened and beg for mercy by it makes me very proud. But I didn't really want to hurt you. I just wanted to scare you. It was like there were red coals burning in my mind, emitting sparks. I was very impulsive. Anyway, since I lost my job, I lurked in the community and wanted to find an opportunity to teach you a lesson when your husband goes to work. But you were very vigilant. Twice I pretended to be a courier and asked you to open the door. You only asked me to put it at the door and didn't open the door. Later, I thought of climbing. Your home is on the 3rd floor and not very high. As long as there are pipes and air conditioning slots where I can stand, I can climb up all the way. Moreover, there is a protruding anti-theft window on the 2nd floor of your house. It's as convenient as a built ladder for me. Climbing up to your window is easy for me. Soon, I got a good opportunity. Your husband was on a business trip. After I saw the light in your bedroom turned off, I waited for a while. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, the community was particularly quiet. I felt that the time had come. So I started climbing up along the drainage pipe. When I climbed to your window, I saw you sleeping soundly on the bed. I was just about to climb in through the window. But just then, a cold wind blew. My burning brain seemed to cool down all of a sudden. I even wondered if this gust of wind was my grandma. I swore to her that I would never go to prison again in my life. And now, I may be doing something stupid. My grandma must be very anxious looking at me from heaven. At that time, I really wanted to cry. I suddenly woke up and was ready to return the same way. But just then, I saw a person enter your bedroom. Long hair. It's a woman. What? I was as frightened as if listening to a ghost story. My hair stood on end and my scalp tingled. Involuntarily, a strange photo of me sleeping that appeared on my phone popped into my mind. In fact, that gust of wind wasn't my grandma. It was that woman who opened your door and caused the air convection. Caleb gave a wry smile. She seems to be very familiar with your bedroom environment. She walked to your bed, picked up your phone, and took a picture of you. I was so curious that I hid outside the window and watched her carefully. By the light of the phone screen, I saw what she looked like. She is your neighbor, Ela from 301. What? What does she look like? I was so frightened that I was almost incoherent. Ela? A familiar female neighbor next door? I was greatly shocked. I have delivered food to her. I know her. She not only took a picture of you but also pulled down the clothes on the hanger by opening your closet door and moved the computer on the bedside table. Then, she left. I remembered that on the 2nd day after my husband went on a business trip, I did find that the clothes in the closet had fallen. I thought I didn't hang them properly. When I found that the computer had changed positions, I thought I had remembered it wrong. I was so careless that I didn't find anything abnormal at all. It wasn't until I accidentally found that strange photo in my phone album the next night that I began to realize something was wrong. But why should I believe that all this was done by her and not by you? I looked at Caleb in front of me and tried my best to maintain calmness and distance in my heart. I didn't want to be completely led by his words. Why? Why did she do it? I asked faintly. Yes. Why did she do it? Caleb moved closer to me. In the somewhat dim light, I noticed that he had an unusually bright pair of eyes, shining sharply. Actually, I like to read novels when I have nothing to do, especially mystery novels. I reasoned that what she did seemed to be to let you know that someone had been to your house in the middle of the night. But what's the purpose? Obviously you will be afraid and feel that your safety has been threatened. Who will you suspect? It must be me. If you call the police, they will suspect me too. There is me in the community surveillance. There are my footprints on the windowsill. You even recorded my voice threatening you. It's over. At that time, I will definitely be unable to defend myself. I am definitely going to jail. I was both nervous and scared, and also very curious. Why did Ela do this? Does she have a grudge against you or against me? I don't remember offending her. So, I had another bold idea. Sneak into her house and find out what she wants to do. It's all on the 3rd floor. Climbing into her house is as easy as climbing into your house. So I climbed up to her window. Unfortunately, I only saw her lying on the bed and sleeping. I originally wanted to sneak into her house. But in the end, I didn't dare to do it. In the end, I found nothing. I was very afraid that you would find something abnormal and call the police the next day. Then I really couldn't explain clearly. Early the next morning, I wanted to call you and tell you that Hila entered your house in the middle of the night. But in what capacity can I say this? Did I see it by lying outside your window in the middle of the night? This can't be said. And even if I said it, you wouldn't believe it. I started to pack my things and bought a train ticket and planned to leave here. Unexpectedly, just when I was about to leave, I received your call. You changed your usual vicious and your tone was very calm. You apologized and said that you were in a bad mood recently and spoke too much. You hoped to meet and talk and solve our problem peacefully. I couldn't wait. I didn't expect that there would be a sudden turn for the better. I was extremely happy. As long as you withdraw the bad review, I will have hope of going back to work again. You set the meeting time at 9:30 in the evening and said that around that time your husband would also come back from a business trip. The three of us could talk. Although I was a little afraid of your husband, I still agreed with a stiff upper lip. In Caleb's account, the time came to the night when Eli came back from a business trip. After I finished dinner and had nothing to do, I strolled to your community early and sat downstairs waiting. After a while, I saw Hila walking from the direction of the community gate. She greeted her neighbors and took a look at me. Her eyes were very strange. She wanted to look at me but didn't want me to notice that she was looking at me. And at that time, when I heard her voice, it was exactly the same as your voice scolding me on the phone. In fact, I always thought your voice on the phone was a bit strange. I began to suspect that she was contacting me on your behalf. She can enter your house, and she can touch your phone. Her various behaviors have unknown motives. At this time, I suddenly remembered one thing. In the corner of this small restaurant, time seemed to freeze, and an invisible tension filled the air. The surrounding noise had long faded from my ears, leaving only Caleb's every word. When I delivered food to you and went upstairs that day, Hila was following me. So is it possible that at that time, my key was inserted in the electric bike and I didn't pull it out? I often do this when I'm busy. And she saw it when she was following me. She secretly pulled out my key. After I delivered the food and turned around and went downstairs, she pressed my key into your rice. This problem that had troubled me for several days was suddenly explained. There is only this possibility. Otherwise, it would be a ghost. Why did she do this? I couldn't help asking. You have asked me this question several times. Oh my God. How would I know at that time? I am a person whose curiosity can't be stopped. I always feel that this woman is very suspicious. Since there was still some time before the appointed time, I climbed up to her window again while it was dark. Guess what I saw? I saw her chatting with a man on video. That man is your husband. Eli. Hearing this, my heart skipped a beat. It was as if a big hand had pulled me out of his story. That kind of doubt and rejection returned to my heart and piled up into a defense line. My gaze at him became a bit cold, and my tone was deliberately calm. What did they talk about? He didn't notice the change in my emotions, and was completely immersed in his own memories. He heard Hila say, "Oh, Clint is in the room. I see the light is on. I'll go and check again later. Caleb has made an appointment. He is waiting downstairs. Hurry up. Go upstairs directly from the underground garage. Otherwise, there won't be enough time." After dealing with O'Clynn first, when Caleb enters the room, he will find that O'Clynn is already dead. The police will definitely suspect him. I will testify. No. The plan has changed. I can't come back in advance. Caleb heard Eli's voice again. The police will check the surveillance in the underground garage to check the time. I must be one step behind Caleb. I will come back after he enters the room. I can tell the police that when I came back, I saw Caleb killing my wife. I fought with him and killed him. In this way, there will be no time loophole. Then you kill two? No problem with two. If one survives, it will be troublesome. When Caleb was telling these things, his voice was tense, as if he had returned to the scene at that time. But I was completely listening to someone else's story. I was completely stunned and couldn't believe what he said was true. Caleb said, "In fact, I recorded their conversation. I originally wanted to keep evidence, but I didn't expect to record nothing. The distance was too far and I couldn't hear anything. I was so scared that I could only leave this horrible place quickly. Saving my life was the most important thing. I planned to run, but suddenly I felt that even if I ran away now, as long as you died, they would still frame me. The police would arrest me and I would still be finished. There is only one way, which is to save you. As long as you don't die. I am not the murderer. I am not a Lei Feng spirit. I just don't want to be a scapegoat." I finally understood that Ela has been intensifying our conflict and wants to lure me to the door as a scapegoat and a substitute for death. As Caleb told the story, I also remembered many details. At that time, Eli snatched my phone and firmly refused to withdraw the bad review. He asked me to complain and asked me to record the words of the delivery man's threat and call the police. Now thinking about it, it may be deliberately creating evidence, but I still don't want to believe it. I still remind myself to listen with a skeptical attitude. Caleb continued, "The appointed time is coming soon. Your husband will also come back. I turned back and directly climbed into your window. But I realized that I didn't have time to persuade you to believe me. And in that case, no matter what I said, you would definitely not believe me." When I was hesitating, I heard Dylan knocking on the door. You also know what happened later. I still remember all the details of that night vividly. After Ela left, when I found someone standing behind the curtain, I immediately went to open the door and wanted to escape. But the person behind the curtain suddenly rushed out and firmly controlled me. "So you prevented me from opening the door for them?" I thought for a while and asked tentatively. "Yes. At that time, I didn't think much. I just instinctively knew that I must not let you open the door. If you open the door, everything will develop according to their plan. Both of us will die and there will be no proof. To be honest, when I was pressing you down, I didn't think about what to do next at all. You showed me the call record. That's right. Only this thing may make you calm down and think about it. But I don't have much hope." Later, I heard the voices of other neighbors outside the door. With others present, they definitely wouldn't dare to act rashly. I knew that you were safe at this time, so I escaped through the window. I don't know what you will tell the police, but I guess the police will definitely come to arrest me. So I hid in a different place and didn't dare to turn on my phone until today when I took a risk to contact you. Because I must tell you about this matter. Otherwise, I can't sleep." He paused for a long time, as if waiting for my answer. But my throat seemed to be blocked by something and I couldn't say a word. It was as if the world I was once familiar with had suddenly turned upside down and become strange and terrifying. The above is my story. There was a sense of relief in his voice, as if he had unloaded a heavy burden. He stared at me, trying to guess what I was thinking from my eyes. Seeing that I was silent, he smiled again. There was a hint of indifference in that smile, whether you believe it or not. "I feel at ease after telling you. I will change to a city. By then, this matter will have nothing to do with me. But they will definitely find a new scapegoat. Take care of yourself." My hands and feet were cold. But the more critical the moment, the clearer my mind became. "You said you recorded it. Can you let me listen to it?" "It's useless. You can't hear anything." Eli and Dila were arrested because of that recording that didn't record anything. The company where I work as a graphic designer is a media company with a very professional audio department. I found a trusted colleague and asked him to help me process this recording. After post-processing noise reduction, reducing environmental noise, reducing current noise and other operations. The conversation between Eli and Dila became clear. I immediately called the police. Eli wrote a detailed confession. He told the police that he and Dila were not lovers. Eli was just his fan. The reason why he wanted to kill me was because he was fed up with being a kept man. He was very humiliated when he was in love with me and got married. Because my family paid for the wedding house. When his parents came to stay for a short time, they had to be polite and restrained to me, and had to follow me in everything. For example. But I always order takeout. His mother thinks I am not frugal and can't manage the household well. But she doesn't dare to say anything. For example, when I make scrambled eggs with tomatoes, I actually put 4 eggs. Mom said 2 would be enough. But I still insisted. His mother had to swallow her anger and hold it in her heart. For example, his mother thought that there was no need to flush the toilet after urinating in the toilet to save water. This is an old person's habit. But every time I turned around and went in and flushed it, he couldn't finish talking about these details for days and nights. Because I rely on my good family background and look down on his parents. I also said that I didn't want to live with them in the future, and would rent a house for his parents. His mother cried when she heard this. He was also very hurt and felt sorry for his parents. Later, when he invested in the gym, he also served me humbly and carefully watched my expression. He treated me like an empress dowager. And only then did I reluctantly take out the money. Unexpectedly, due to investment losses and career setbacks, he became reluctant to go home, because every time before going home, he had to force himself to smile and put on a different face to be my little servant. He felt that to change his family status, he had to earn money. Earn a lot of money and surpass me. Only then could he gain the dignity a man should have and truly fulfill his filial piety to his parents. He is a master's degree holder in sports science from a sports university. Now, he has been reduced to competing for traffic with all kinds of people. Some of the anchors only have a junior high school education. What's worse, his income is simply not comparable to theirs. In order to gain traffic, they will stop at nothing. Many of them write scripts and direct and act by themselves. He is diligent, professional in teaching, has extremely long-lived broadcasts, and works hard to sell products. Still, he is the bottom anchor in the company. Of course, he doesn't have much income and still has to rely on me for support. There is a big sister who is the top donor in his live broadcast room and is very enthusiastic about him. Later, he found out that it was the neighbor Ela. She clearly understood his situation and was very considerate to him. She often gave him gifts and helped him come up with plans. Ela said that after some social hot events, some anchors pretend to be the parties involved in the events to gain traffic. And the effect is very good. Of course, he knows this. In such cases, the traffic often increases explosively overnight. However, because there are many fakes, many people are banned. He began to think about how he could truly become a party involved in a hot event. He thought about this for a long time. Until one day, a friend of his came to the community to look for him and ran into a delivery man. The friend said that this delivery man had a criminal record. He had been rejected when applying for a job at their company before. And he had a deep impression. The friend also said, "Your wife often orders takeout alone at home. Be careful." Suddenly, he had a bold idea. If a bad review leads to a bloody case, it will definitely attract widespread social attention. And he, a man who deeply loves his wife, loses his beloved and is in agony. Just thinking about it is exciting. It's simply achieving multiple goals at once. First, he can gain huge sympathy as a result. Second, he can become a hero who avenges his wife. Third, he becomes single again. There are many women who like him. And he can regain a forest. Fourth, he doesn't have to live a subservient life to me anymore. Fifth, the house belongs to him. He can dispose of it at will and bring his parents to live with him if he wants. He can finally control his own world and become the king of this world. He was very excited and felt that he could immediately play the desperate and affectionate man. The inspiration for acting gushed up inside him. "Wife, I miss you so much," he cried into the mirror. And even tears fell. He tentatively discussed with Ela. To win Ela over. He promised to be with her. He knew that Ela had long been lusting after him and would definitely agree to him. After that, the two of them colluded to design and cause disputes between me and Caleb. He knew that when I was working, I would be in the study or bedroom, wearing headphones and concentrating. My mobile phone was often left on the coffee table in the living room or on the shoe cabinet at the door. He gave Ela the key to my house and asked her to find an opportunity to use my mobile phone and stir up trouble. They gradually promoted the conflict between me and Caleb. They put Caleb's electric by key in my rice, making me resolutely give a bad review, making me threatened by Caleb, and making Caleb want to take revenge on me by coming to my door. Then, all he needed was to find an appropriate time to lure Caleb to the door and kill us both at the same time. In a fight between three people with two deaths, he would have the only right to explain the scene. And there was also Ela as a witness. His image of a loving husband had been cultivated for 2 or 3 years, and was deeply rooted in people's hearts. Everything was flawless. But he didn't expect that man proposes. God disposes. One wrong step, and he ruined his whole life. After Eli was imprisoned, he hoped to meet me, but I refused. He actually asked someone to bring me a message with only 3 words. "I hate you." Hearing these 3 words, the corners of my mouth involuntarily rose, and I felt like laughing, and was also sad. My astonishment at this man was like a flood. I didn't expect that he could continuously bring me new shocks. Behind 2 years of dating and 4 years of happy marriage and countless sweet, "I love yous," what was truly hidden was these 3 cold and piercing words. How ironic. Later, my father-in-law and mother-in-law even brought relatives to make trouble at my door, saying that it was because I was vicious that their son was driven to a dead end. He felt that he ended up in this situation because of me. I sold the house, moved to a new place, and started a new life alone. I realized that there is no perfect man in this world and there is no love without reason. I have always been touched by his thoughtfulness towards me. It turns out that the gifts of fate really come with a price. Later, I met Caleb again. I asked him if he was interested in text proofreading work. I could recommend him to work at a friend's publishing company. He politely declined me. He said that he had returned to his previous company to deliver takeout. The team leader had always been very good to him. He was rated as an outstanding employee again. He earned an extra 800 yuan this month. Moreover, when he had time, he would still write novels online. But no one read them. I was full of gratitude to him. This time, I sincerely expressed my gratitude for saving my life. He smiled gently. "Actually, I also want to thank you." "Thank me for what?" I asked. "Because this whole thing was completely because I involved him." He paused and blushed a little. "Actually, I have always doubted whether I am a good person. Those things in the past are like black holes, always lying in wait at my feet. It seems that if I am not careful, I will step on them and fall back into the abyss. But after experiencing this incident, I think I can be a good person and walk steadily. I will never fall back again in this life." He smiled, very brightly, like a big boy. His smile was very infectious, and I couldn't help but smile along with him.